by our college staffers for classroom assignments. All right, some predictions, assumptions, and disclaimers. One prediction that I have is that you all may be figuring out your summer plans. I'm young, as you'll soon, will be told when I go in a little bit of detail about myself. But I'm also figuring out my summer plans. So I thought this was, a perfect thing to do for teens. All right, an assumption. It's late in the evening, so you may be tired. I'm definitely tired. You can probably hear it in my voice. If you don't now, you may later in this presentation, which is why I will respect everyone's time and try to be as efficient as I can. Disclaimer, I am not a professional resume writer or employment specialist, but I've held more than enough positions to have an understanding about how to set yourself apart as a young person. And I hope you will, find all the tips that I give you informative and helpful. And of course, this format is from our friends at the Lakeside Global Institute. Are there any questions? Let's pause for a second. If there are no questions, I'll go to the next slide. So who am I? My name is Jamil Duncan. I've been a legislative aide for 3 years to a state senator, an opinion correspondent, a teacher's aide at a local charter school, a writer for a Democratic delegate, a congressional campaign intern, an election day war room supervisor. Currently, I'm the Deputy Director of Policy, Data, and Research at a local nonprofit. I'm a journalism fellow at the Philadelphia Citizen. I'm a contributing writer at the internationally read Teen magazine. And of course, I'm here with you guys with Fab Philly. All of that, and I'm only in high school junior. The point of this presentation is to show you guys that you can do it too. All of it. It is all possible if you apply yourself and utilize some of the tips that I'm going to give you during this presentation. Here's how. Do research on whatever company you're interested in joining. You do not want to get yourself in any sort of situation, that you don't want to be in. You don't want to agree to work for someone and end up being unhappy because it turns out not to be for you. And you also don't want to waste that company's resources, and time and money that they spend on onboarding you just for you to quit, a few days or weeks later. You want to make sure this is something you can dedicate yourself to whenever you apply to a company. It's also important to do research on the company by looking at their social media and their LinkedIn. If you don't know what LinkedIn is, I will talk about that in one of the later slides. Make sure you look at past and current employees. The retention of past employees or current employees is important. Look at how long they've stayed at that company. That's an indicator of whether employees are happy with their employer. If you are happy with your employer, you're bound to stay there a little bit longer than if you're not. And so that's something to take note of when you look at the LinkedIn accounts of past and current employees. It's something I do all the time, and I recommend that everyone does that. Do research on the position you're applying for. Again, you do not want to get yourself in a position where you find yourself unqualified or unequipped to do the things you'll be tasked with doing. Make sure you make an impressive first impression. This is done through email or phone call. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a social media application for professionals. It's used for job recruitment, it's used for networking, and not many people have a LinkedIn. So having one will immediately impress employers. Right after or immediately before an interview, I think it's best to do this right after, though. I'll connect with the person that I interviewed with on LinkedIn. It sort of keeps you as an applicant in their minds, even after you're done interviewing. And I think that has been a really helpful tactic per se. In has Joshua joined? All right. Um, so Joshua, make sure, you can feel free to uh, stop me at any time and ask me questions in the chat, or communicate that with Miss Donna, our interpreter, excuse me.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. So what I was saying was, be sure to connect with your LinkedIn, network, which most immediately can be built with the people that you've interviewed with. Um, Again, as an applicant, you want to do whatever you can that will make you stand out. And if that means connecting with them through a professional networking site like LinkedIn, then I think you should take advantage of that opportunity. Here's what one looks like. I guess I'll add another disclaimer. I do not like that photo, but I think that's the best one I've got for LinkedIn. Anyway, at the top, you have sort of your header, what everyone will see when they click on your LinkedIn account. That'll be the first thing they see. They'll see your location and whatever you fill in for your header. Me, I chose to put a few of my titles. Other people, they'll put, aspiring so-and-so, or, teen looking for a job in this field. And I think those are all great and appropriate headers to have for your LinkedIn account. Are there any questions about that? No questions? All right. And at the bottom, you also see that there is the location, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. That's important because in addition to being a social, that's a good question. Do any of you have LinkedIn accounts?
I do, but mine doesn't look as nice as yours does.
Thank you. So as I was saying about the location, that's important because in addition to being a networking website, it also is a place where you can be recruited. So my job at UrbEd, which is a local education advocacy nonprofit, before I even applied for that job, I connected with the executive director. And he later said to me that had I not applied, he would have reached out to me because he saw my LinkedIn. And so that's just an example of, the benefits of connecting with someone you want to work for or work with can have, and it's also important to make sure they have a really strong LinkedIn profile, which I'll get into in a second. Again, back to location, people recruit, and if they have a business in Colorado, they would not be recruiting someone from Philadelphia. So make sure you make it known where you're located, and or maybe not where you're located, where you want to work. That's helpful information for recruiters because again, you want to get recruited by local companies, not a company somewhere you would not be able to work. Right. And the experience section, LinkedIn is sort of like has a feature on the profile section that's basically like a live digital resume. And so this is just the first part of it, and I'll get into the other parts. The education part, of course, I'm still in high school. So I have my middle school and high school. At the bottom of each, you can, talk about whatever activities you did at the time. And I'll get into that more because if you don't have any direct work experience, as I'll later explain, you can use some of the school club experience, sort of fill that in the experience section, as opposed to, putting it in a subscript below whatever school you went to. Because honestly, employers care more about the experience rather than the education, unless you went to, Harvard or something like that. All right. Everything after that, there's the skills endorsement section, which is meant to attest to your skill set. I'm good at public speaking, Microsoft Suite, things of that sort. That's what the skill section is for. There's also a section for recommendations. So if you have anyone that on LinkedIn, don't hesitate to ask them to write you, a short 1 or 2 sentence recommendation on LinkedIn if you think that will strengthen your profile. You can also give recommendations. And after that, there's the accomplishment section, which has awards, publications, projects, and organizations that you're part of. Now, I don't go into much depth in these slides about those sections because if an employer or someone looking to connect with you is wanting to know those details about you after they've seen your headline and the experience and the education section, then you're probably pretty close to getting whatever opportunity you want, because these are sort of minute details when compared to the whole. So if they're interested in that, then I think you're already good for whatever it is you're aspiring to have professionally, that is. All right, email, which is one of the 2 modes to reach out to employers. Make sure your email is professional. I've had plenty of events where I've had to, take down the email of people registering for something. And I've seen some really egregious emails. And you do not want to be, one of those people. You want to, have an email, that when someone types out, they won't question, what in the world is this? Or who in the world is this? Or who in the world would think this is appropriate? You want them to see you as a mature young adult, which is always the goal in the professional setting, because as a young person who have been in a lot of professional settings, young people are almost always underestimated or, talked to like they're 5 instead of, the 17, 16-year-old that they are. And so don't do anything that will give anyone a reason to treat you that way. Use your first and last name as I did in my email there. All right. Again, don't use a nickname. Don't refer to anything vulgar. Here's an example here. Bad guy at russianmafia.ru. Big no-no. All right. Writing a professional email. Make sure you follow email etiquette. Open with a salutation. Good morning, good afternoon, hi, hello. Don't say hey. I think hey is a little bit informal unless you know that person already. Make sure you follow grammar and use full sentences. So spell out you, Y-O-U, instead of you, the letter. Use punctuation. That is very important. How well someone writes, people see that as a marker of their ability. And no matter what job you have, you need to be able to, at the very least, write and communicate well, whether it's written or oral. And I'll get to the oral part when I talk about cell phone communication. And use a subject line that helps clarify what your email is about. Here is excuse me, Ms. Rebecca sent something. Make sure you write, something similar to employment inquiry. I tend to use that when I'm looking for a job because, getting a ton of emails, you want to know before you open it what it is you're in for. Nobody looks forward to reading your email. And so if they have to dig to find out what it is that you're emailing them about, they will not be happy with you. So make it, easy and plain. This is an an employment inquiry. Don't waste anyone's time with making them dig to find out what it is you're emailing them about. All right. The body of the email. So here's an example of what I sent to Fab Philly in November of last year. Be sure to state your name and again, a salutation. Say that you're young. I tend to believe that few things in this world are truly done because someone wants to help someone, people help other people because they make them feel good, especially with young people. You know, it makes older people feel like they're doing something good for the world. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but that's just the reality. So take advantage of that. Say that you're young. And I did that here. Hello, my name is Jamil Duncan, and I'm a high school junior. Make sure you also give some background if it will help. So I said, I'm a high school junior. And right after that, I said, I worked for Senator Street. That is a rarity. And you want to take advantage of things like that. If you haven't, done anything like that, you can say, and I'm the president of my high school club of whatever, or I founded this club or this organization. Um, Make sure you take advantage of whatever fantastic thing you have done, and exploit that, because that will make people immediately interested in you. Someone who does that, um, you know, their email is going to get read, and whatever they attach is going to get reviewed thoroughly, as opposed to someone who says, hey, I'm Jamil, I want a job. They want just a little bit of detail, just to tease them, to see what it is you have to offer. And make sure you attach your resume. Before I get to that though, I also want to point out something else I did in that email. I set the tone for what it is I wanted. I didn't want an unpaid job, because I just left from that, and I made that clear. But I said it in a way that was, professional. It's not like, give me a paid job, you sort of allude to it. And if that's something that you want, paid opportunity as opposed to an unpaid opportunity, you can finesse the way you're setting your expectations, for what it is you want at the outset. And of course, attaching your resume. And I'll get to resume writing in a second. And attach your cover letter. Your cover letter is basically, after an employer reads your cover letter, you want them to finish reading it, understanding more about you. If they finish reading it with more questions than answers about who you are, that's not good. You don't want to leave them with questions. You want to, you know, answer everything or most things about you, as possible, and make a good summary of your professional, life. Or if you don't, if you're beginning to enter, the professional realm, um, make sure you can even exploit that. Talk about your aspirations and your goals and what motivates you to do what it is you want to do, or what it is about that company that draws them to you. Um, what draws you to them. And thank them for reading. Now, I've seen a lot of emails, when I used to work for Senator Street, that were like, thank you in advance. Do not assume that, anything is going to happen. Do not put thank you in advance. That's a common one. And I do not recommend doing that. So instead, use something like, thank you for your consideration. And I think that's much more leveled and neutral, as opposed to putting something like, I look forward to speaking with you, or I look forward to the interview. Don't be pretentious, or arrogant in assuming, they're going to respond in the first place. Just be, grateful for them getting to that part of the email, and just say thank you for your consideration. Keep it nice and simple. Are there any questions about anything I've said so far? I don't bite. You guys can ask questions.
I think, didn't some of our safety captains just go over some of this last night? So I'm wondering if they learned anything different or have any additional tips to share about emails, especially.
Don't be shy.
What was the question again?
Joshua says, I have a question.
Yeah, ask.
Yes, I have a question for Jamil. How long do you wait for a person to respond back?
Give them at least a
got
week.
all the information through LinkedIn and what do you think? Like, do you think it takes some, maybe if they turn you down, will they give you a reason why or some information about why not?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that, Joshua. All right, so I usually wait at least a week or two for them to respond. That's usually an indicator if they're interested. If they're interested, they'll usually reply within the week or two. If not, then keep, emailing other employers. Don't sit around waiting for a reply. Unfortunately, not every employer replies to employment inquiries. I think it's awfully rude, but it's the reality, and that's that tends to be what happens. However, there are some some places of employment that will email you back and say, thank you for your application, but we cannot accept you, or we don't have the funds, or come up with something. And as for asking what it is that you could do differently, you can do that. I think that's actually a fine thing to do. If you're rejected in an interview, in an email or after, an interview, you can say, what could I have done to interview better? How could I sell myself better? Things of that nature. So there is a way to ask what it is that made you not get the job, and other things that you could do better. I hope I answered your question. Are there any other questions or follow-ups?
He says, yes, you did. You did. That was my question.
I just put in the chat that I was curious if anybody has done a cold email the way that Jamel did. So I'm the person who read the email that you're seeing right now from Jamel. And I was like, yes, I need to know who this person is. And so I'm wondering if any of our safety captains or anyone else here tonight has ever done what Jamel did, which was just reach out to someone and try to make contact, and how that went for anybody. I know for some of our safety captains, actually, I think we have one of our safety captains. I don't want to call you out in case you don't want this to be made public, but we do have a safety captain who I know reached out to me through social media to find out more. And maybe that person would be willing to say what their strategy was. Because I think you reached out through social media, not through an email. So maybe while that person is deciding if they want to speak up or not, Jamel, what are your thoughts about reaching out to someone like with a direct message if someone may not know how to write an email or not know that's the right way to do it? What are your thoughts or recommendations, or anyone else here, what are your thoughts or recommendations for using social media to be in touch with an employer?
Right. That's actually a really good one. I always recommend doing, email and, phone calls, as I'll get to later, is all about communication. So you can have the same content. You just have to communicate it differently. You can, state your name, give a salutation, give some background that will draw the potential employer to you in an email, in a phone call, or in social media. Just make sure you have all of the necessary components, that will make what it is you're saying to them effective, and make them interested in you. So, and I'll get to this more later, it doesn't really matter, if you're, writing an email or on a phone, because the same content will be there regardless. So as I'll explain later, if you're on the phone, hello, my name is Jamil Duncan, my school junior. I just came from Center Street's office, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll be communicating the same way, just in a different format. And so I think the same tips that I've given about email would still apply if you opt to DM or direct message a potential employer. Any other questions? Is there any tips you can provide about cover letters? Yes, cover letters. So, as I alluded to before, you want to give a brief summary about yourself and your professional background. And make sure you end it with something like, for these reasons, I think I can be an asset to your company. I do that in my cover letters. And that's that's what is most important. At the end of the day, every employer is thinking, what is this applicant going to, add to my company? You want to answer that question. That is the most important question by far. You want to make it clear that you have something to offer, whether it's, that dedication, timeliness, or, connections or experience in whatever field it is that the company operates in. So thank you, Mr. Michael, for that question. That's right, Ms. Rebecca just said in the chat, you can talk about volunteer experience or class projects, anything that will, interest them in you and help them learn more about you. Because again, like I said before, you want to make it so that they don't have any unanswered questions about you. They should finish reading that cover letter, having a good understanding of who you are, not, still puzzled about who you are. Right, if there aren't any more questions, I'll move to, what is one skill? Okay, that's for the participants. Yeah, feel free to add that in the chat. What is one skill each of you has had to offer to an employer? All right. Ms. Davis, I don't know how to pronounce your first name. Ms. Davis said experience and dedication. Ms. Thomas Steen says great communication. These are good responses. All right. Here's Mr. Alex says eagerness to learn. That's important because again, you don't want to be pretentious or arrogant. The best employees are the best people, the best adapters. I'll put it that way, because you don't want to be in a position where you're complacent and you think you know it all or you have all the answers. Make sure you're learning from everyone you're working with, and that's really important. If you have that quality, that is something that a potential employer will definitely appreciate, because no one likes dealing with someone who thinks they have all the answers. All right, and Joshua says leadership. Okay, here is a short video about how to write a resume. And when I hit the button, make sure you thumbs up if you can hear the audio.
And are you able to put on captions too, Jamel, by any chance? Can you click the captions at the bottom?
Yes.
There you go. Thanks.
Can you hear it?
No. Not yet.
Resumes should always be typed and never handwritten.
But there's a little bit of feedback. I think when you mute yourself, Jamel, it mutes whatever computer you're running the video on.
So.
You are welcome to drop the link in the chat, and maybe Mr. Michael can run it through his computer.
while we're fixing that,
All right, sorry about that.
we had.
The
No
link is
worries.
now in the chat.
Great.
Echo.
So I'll give everyone a few seconds, sorry, a few minutes to watch
I'm just
that.
gonna play it on my screen.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Good job, everyone, for being patient. This technology stuff can be really challenging, and it can, I know for me, it throws my confidence. If I don't get the technology right, my confidence goes out the window. So thanks for being patient while we work on this.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help.
Can you
This
get the
sentence
captions, Michael?
is grammatically
Effective resume says a lot about yourself. Resumes should always be typed and never handwritten. A resume should make a statement about you. Let's start from the beginning of the document. Use a template if you can. Start with your name. Bold it and make it stand out, along with your email address, mailing address, phone number, and any other information you'd like to include. The objective. While not required, it's highly recommended that you have an objective on your resume. An objective should just be a brief statement about a job you are seeking. For example, John here is seeking a job that involves working on vehicles and providing customer service to his customers. Education. List the education starting with the most recent. If you have any degrees, be sure to list those. Bold anything that you want to stand out, but don't overdo yourself. Experience. List other jobs you have worked for, starting from the most recent. Bold titles that will stand out to help that goes along with your objective. And of course, use the references and provide skills. If you don't have any references to list, make them available upon request. If you use references, you should at least list 3 references. And when you are finished, review your resume and make sure everything looks good. That includes spell checking and grammar checking your resume. Have a friend or someone else read over your resume for you. When it's all good, print the resume out on the paper of your choice. I personally prefer linen paper to make your resume look more professional. These has been some quick tips on resumes. You can download the full ebook to resume making tips and this template from techblue.org.
Thank you, Mr. Michael, for stepping in and coming to the rescue. This is a good example of the importance of, being adaptable and admitting to not always having the answers. In that moment, I did not have any answers, not one. But one of my colleagues stepped in and worked it out. And so that's a skill that you want to emphasize, if you have it, to employers when you're applying for a job. Right, I'm going to try to screen share again. You all can see it? Perfect. Except you can see my tabs. That's fine. So what if you don't have any experience? You needn't panic. You can fill the experience section with volunteer work, household duties, school club experience, or put an emphasis on the awards you've gotten. Now, I'll use myself as an example. When I first started before I started working for Center Street, I had met him beforehand, and he had basically, said, I want you to work for me, but I had to go through the motions still. And so before working for him, I only had one job before. I was a a campaign intern. And so my experience section was looking really, really light. And so I was like, what am I going to do to sort of pad my resume? And I did something I later found out was not good. I made mine like 3 pages worth of awards. Do not do that. I had nothing else to put, so I thought, I'll just fill it with awards. Don't do that. Your resume should be 1 page long. The only, exception is if are like President Obama or something like that. I'm sure he he can have as many pages of his resume as he pleases. But until we get there, 1-page resumes, which also means that you have to be selective about what it is you put on that 1 page, because it's only 1 page, space is limited. You always want to be aware of that. All right, what if you reach out by phone? Say who you are and ask for the email of whoever does the hiring. Once you get that email, do what we just talked about how to send a professional email. Or you can ask to speak to the person who's in charge of doing the hiring. Once you get that person on the phone, make a short pitch about who you are to them. And you would do the same strategies I talked about as you would an email. Hello, here's my name, a little bit of history about me. I'm interested in a position. You can sort of sprinkle in there whether you want it paid or unpaid, because again, expectations going into employment is really important. And that's something that you shouldn't be shy about. And so, are there any questions about that, about reaching out to an employer via telephone? Again, don't be shy. I like questions. Going once, going twice. No questions? All right. Posing, and again, questions if you have any. So today we learned about how to market yourself on LinkedIn. Sorry, Mr. Alex just mentioned something. I have a resume and I've always kept it to 1 page, which I think has served me really well with job searches. Yes, that's another thing, job searches. When employers look at resumes through things like Indeed and things like that, which is another sort of, I wouldn't call it a networking site, but it's a site that recruiters use. So people that are looking for people to hire, they go to that website often for resumes. And there's been studies that show that most employers take like 7 seconds to look at a resume and decide whether to can it or look at it. And so you want to have the most pertinent information at the very forefront, and you want to make it look as appealing as possible. Like the man said in the video, make your name bolded and have all the pertinent information at the top. You don't want to give any employer the reason to can your resume. All right. Some questions? Let's see. Whenever I am looking for a lot of resumes for a position I'm hiring for, I always go looking for the first people who reach out to me directly. It is a great way for demonstrated interest. I don't know if you guys are, into applying for college, but demonstrated interest is a big thing anywhere. And that's true for college as well. So you might have heard about this in, your college readiness class or like a junior seminar. Or if you're younger than that, you certainly will at some point in your college experience. And what that is basically is sort of what I was talking about before, connecting to, your potential employer on LinkedIn or following them on, social media and things of that sort. That's a form of demonstrated interest that shows that, hey, I'm serious about my interest in whatever it is your company is offering. And so that's always appreciated. A question from Mr. Kevin. if a job posting says something like must have a high school degree, does that mean I shouldn't apply or email them if I haven't graduated high school or obtained the GED? So I'll tell you now, I don't think I've had a single job where I've met the education requirement. I've always been too young and at least by the degree standard, undereducated. Of course, I'm still in high school. That has not stopped me from applying, and it should not stop you from applying. I like to say, if the juice is good, people will drink it, no matter, whether you like, have the education criterion. Because like I said before, that really doesn't matter. It's really the experience, what it is you can bring to the table. And if you sell yourself well enough, more likely than not, you will be able to get whatever it is, whatever position you're applying for. That is a great question, Mr. Kevin. That is something that I face regularly. And as a young person, if you are going for these higher level positions that you are technically not qualified for, that's even more reason for you to, put your best foot forward in your application and during the interview, and if or when you get the job. Because as a young person, you will always be underestimated, and they can blame it on not having a degree, not having experience. Don't give them a reason. Always do your best. Now, it's impossible to give 100% all of the time, but try to be as close to it as you can, because the odds are already set against you as a young person in a professional work environment. Right? A question from Miss Rebecca. So should someone say, I know I don't meet the education requirement, but here's why I'm qualified? I think that's an okay thing to say. Personally, I never said it. I just ignored it. I pretend, it didn't exist. They can find out I'm younger, later, or or that I don't have a college degree later. And I, put my experience at the forefront. I put what I can offer up at the forefront. Minor details, let them figure out later. Because if they are interested in you, where they're asking about, hey, did you go to college? Then that means you've already done a good job as an applicant trying to make yourself appealing. Someone who's not interested in you as an applicant is not going to ask those details about your background. And so, if those things are requested, be honest, of course, don't lie, because then you won't get the job. But make sure you are, transparent. Here's what I have to offer. Here's all the things that I've done. Here's all the things that I can do. I'm willing to learn, and this is of more value than some education, requirement. All right, are there any other questions before I hit the next? All right, to the next bullet point. We also learned how to write a professional email. Again, don't put anything vulgar in your email. It's best to use your first and last name. That's important because when you're reaching out to an employer, it's easier for them to respond to you or find your email in the pile of emails that they get if it is your first and last name. So say you attach an email to your initial letter to them. They download it and says Jamil Duncan's or Rebecca Fabiano's resume. They look at the resume and say, oh, I like this applicant. They have to go to their inbox and try to figure out what your email is if it isn't in your resume, which it should be, as we talked about before. But nevertheless, they'll likely go to their inbox and figure out what it is you sent them initially. Make sure all their ducks in a row. And if your email isn't your name, then they're going to have trouble, figuring out who it is you are. Or even if it's, your high school ID, like 625-8508, things like that. That is also confusing. And so sometimes that's not avoidable, but I would recommend, you're just skipping over that and making yourself a Gmail account or an Outlook account, or a Yahoo, if people still use Yahoo. Uh, um, yeah, because you don't want the employer to struggle locating your email, because you do want to reply. Mr. Kevin uses Yahoo. I think we ought to say a prayer for him. Uh, we also learn how to write a professional resume, which again is important because it encapsulates all of your professional experience, your education, which, as I just said, isn't all that important if your experience sort of outweighs the education requirement. You also learn how to call a potential employer, which is also important because you may not always have their email. Or, if you're applying to something like Macy's, they don't give you an email to apply to. You have to fill out in a form. And you put your information in, what hours you're willing to work, basic skills and things like that. And usually if you meet the basic requirements, you'll get a phone call interview. And of course, that's not as personal as an in-person interview or even a Zoom interview. At least you can pick up social cues on Zoom. So before I applied to FabU Philly, I think it was Macy's or like a Target, one of those stores that I applied to. And the person that did the phone interview, you could tell, they were like reading off of the script. Don't interrupt them reading off the script. They've probably been reading scripts all day, interviewing people by phone. Just let them do their job, especially if you hear the frustration in their voice. Interrupting them and making them have to repeat themselves will make them even more mad. So, you can't pick up on social cues, but what I tried to do was just smile while I was talking, even though, I was not very happy during that interview. And if you are smiling while you're talking, it's kind of hard to sound dejected. All right. And Mr. Michael just put a link to some additional resume tips. Feel free to utilize that. Are there any questions? You can ask about anything I've covered or something I haven't covered. I'd love to answer. Anyone? If there are no questions, there will be an anonymous poll that will pop up on your screen shortly. And this poll is anonymous. It just gives us, data about what it is we should improve, keep, or, change with these workshops. Of course, I thank you all for joining. This is the first one I posted. With the exception of that minor technical difficulty, I think this went pretty well. But that will also be determined by your poll, so which is why it's important for you to respond, so we have that information.
Thank you to our guests who were here. Thank you for participating and for showing up and listening. And Jamel, thank you for doing such a great job. I learned a bunch of new things. So thank you very much to everybody for joining. We are going to be doing this again in 2 weeks. I believe some of our topics in the future are going to be about finance, so credit and budgeting, all these things that hopefully you would like to learn about. If there are topics you want to learn about, you can let us know that too, so we can make these workshops based on your interest. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Right.
I think Sabina's trying to get out. There we go. Thank you, Donna.
So I'm gonna wait for Sabina to come.
Oh, yeah. Bye. Michael, can you make me the host again for a second? There we go. Okay, thanks.
Well, have a good night.
Thank you so much. It was great to see you. Appreciate you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Nice job, Jamel. Woohoo! Sorry that I cursed. Oh, Sean's entering the waiting room. Sorry that I cursed. That was supposed to be a private chat. Michael, you're on mute.
Oh, wait.
That was supposed to be a private chat. Hey, Sean.
I put Sean in the waiting room because I
Oh.
feel like he might have left us, but doesn't know it yet.
Oh, Sean might have left us. We didn't know it. Got it. I will put him in the waiting room too. There we go. Okay. Thank you.
I didn't mind the cursing.
Sorry, that was supposed to be a private chat. I did not mean for that to
And
go
that
to
is-
everybody.
It worked because it seemed like you were doing it to show a bad example.
Oh my God.
Wait, didn't you say that afterward?
I did. I tried to cover my tracks. Oh, I have a potty mouth and I'm a terrible speller, and I always chat in the wrong box. Always. I should not be allowed to chat during these meetings, ever. Good job, Jamil.
Thank you. Are there any tips? Things I could do better?
I think you should lead most of our workshops from now on. That's what I think.
No, I think you did a good job of like the actual presenting part. I think you did a really good job at that. If we're with you, supporting you, I would say honestly, you don't have to worry much about the chat. Like you can kind of consider it as almost like two kind of sometimes separate conversations happening. So if like Becca said like, hey, throw in the chat about this, then it's gonna happen organically and then let it happen. So don't worry too much. I didn't want it to be a distraction for you. So so if you have a co-host, then you don't have to worry too much about it. Would you agree with that, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think so. And I also think you did a great job of bringing the chat into the conversation. So it's hard to balance those two things. You did that really well. The one thing I might encourage is to think about how to pull in the experience of the people who are in the audience, right? So thinking more about your peers and the participants. So give me a thumbs up if everyone has a resume, or what's 2 tips you would recommend? So just getting your audience to share a little of their own experience or expertise. I think folks get excited when they get to share something and the expert is like, yes, that's right. So maybe that, as you think about your next one, how can you invite people to the conversation a little bit? Other than that, I thought your pacing was great. You were confident. I loved you found teachable moments when people were talking, and like even a teachable moment about like when the technology goes wrong. That's a great thing to talk, have it, you're on a team, rely on your team. You don't have to be good at everything. So I thought those teachable moments were really organic and appropriate.
All right. Thank you for that advice. Definitely taking it all in.
Do you have any thoughts about like what you, sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. I was gonna ask, well, I'll say tech issues gonna happen no matter what. So don't let that bother you. Like, honestly, I haven't, like, outside of our staff meeting when Rebecca was out, I haven't had to like do that too often. So there's definitely will be times where over own buttons. So don't stress about that.
When that happened, I was pretty calm, surprisingly. I'm not gonna lie. Right before this was the board's action meeting. And then just before that, I had an interview because I'm writing a story about the accessibility of laws. And I interviewed Democratic Minority Whip Jordan Harris. So hard to get on his schedule, but I got it, and he gave me some really good things to include in my article, which will come out in early April. And so I woke up this morning and like, oh my God, like, just like,
what a day.
Right, what a day. My stomach was in like angles, like, oh my goodness. But I think it went pretty well, so yeah.
Yeah. So now that the day is over, let's all take a deep breath. Day's over. How do you feel?
I feel good, relieved. I'm more confident about my ability to do something like this.
Dude, you have another topic you want to do? Bring it on. Bring it on. Bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. We want you to do more of this. Very, very excellent. I'm
was
really
fun.
proud. Good work.
Oh, wait, so, oh, go ahead. It's unrelated, me and Mr. Michael we're talking about Veep. Do you watch Veep? Or have you watched Veep?
I have watched it, yes. I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I watched a couple of the first season or second season, I think.
It's a fine show.
Is that all you wanted to say? Was that you just wanted to know if I watched it?
Yeah, I was just curious.
Okay, I have seen it. In fact, I forget what it was, but I was opening the refrigerator door not too long ago, someday this week, thinking I should go back and watch Veep from the beginning. Like that should be my next binge series from like beginning to end. I don't know why I thought maybe so there was Julia Louis-Dreyfus was referenced somewhere, and I was like, she's awesome. So Veep was in my, I was thinking about you were in my head, down in my head.
She's also so versatile. I didn't realize it when I first started watching Veep, but she was in what's that show with Wanda Sykes? So it's like it's a sitcom
Oh yeah.
with her, like she had like a kid.
I'm blanking on it.
I could picture it in my head.
Oh, Christine and the New Adventures of Old Christine is what it's called.
New Adventures of Old Christine. Yes,
And
I saw that for a couple of seasons.
I totally forgot she was in that.
Yeah, and
She's really
Seinfeld.
grown, right? She's really grown as an actress, and Veep is just hilarious.
Well, what I was going to say, or as I was thinking about, is take a deep breath, enjoy the rest of your evening, kick your feet up, relax, have a nice cup of tea, maybe your special tea that you save for special moments. This would be a good night to have it. There you go. Hope you both get a good night's rest. Thank you so, so much. I'm so impressed and grateful and really just appreciate the support among everybody, both showing up, jumping in. Just can't say thank you enough.
Awesome.
Thank you
I will
both.
see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Sorry about that. I was like, of all the choices, he's going to pick the 9 o'clock. As soon as I said, like, I shouldn't even offer that as an option, but I have so little windows. You are both gems to join. You really don't have to. But
I think I'm just gonna do cold brew coffee and just have it ready for my fridge for the morning, just to get it ready to nap.
Well, I appreciate it. So get a good night's rest.
All right, I'll see you.
Bye. Thanks. Good job, Jamil. Bye.